Hi, and welcome. Today I'm posing a question drawn from the Arico and Phallus reading whether it is ever acceptable to lie, and can we acquire knowledge from people who lie to us? I'll be looking at this in the context of news satire and parody, which are often categorized as fake news. I'll explain why this should not necessarily be the case throughout this presentation. There are opposing views on the meaning of the term fake news. This has been highlighted by Trump's use of the word as the catch all term for problematic information. His recent announcement of the winners of his Fake News Awards listed some of the world's most renowned news outlets. These dialogues are further muddying the discourse of fake news. Traditional discourse defines fake news to be news that is verifiably false with the intention to mislead consumers. In other words, it is conveying a lie to audiences with the purpose of convincing them that it is true. This can be linked to traditional philosophers' definitions of lying as asserting something that you believe to be false with the intent to deceive. An example of fake news which is illustrative of these traditional notions is this Daily Telegraph front page, which attacks young people on welfare, blaming them for being lazy rather than addressing the economic crisis that has made it more difficult for people to find work. It makes unsubstantiated comments about a minority group without fact checking and is published by a paper which claims legitimacy. The interviewees later admitted that they lied throughout the interview. This highlights the saturation of news and information in the 21st century, which has been accelerated further by digital technologies. Nevertheless, the internet's facilitation of new media platforms such as social media allows alternative narratives to be heard, not only from the voices of those from powerful news outlets. Furthermore, social spheres are strengthened by the information exchange. Contemporary discourse acknowledges the distinction between news satire and parody from fabrication, manipulation, advertising, and propaganda. News satire refers to mock news programs which typically use humour or exaggeration to present audiences with news updates. News parody shares many characteristics with satire, as both rely on humour as a means of drawing an audience. It also uses a presentation format which mimics mainstream news media. Both play on the ludicrousness of issues. Can satire and parody be fake news if it is not perceived as real by the audience? As stated in the lecture, lying can be fact-checked and is in itself a discourse. Lies can be in the name of truth without the intention to deceive. This can be seen through the Batuta Advocate, an online newspaper whose topics and broader social observations are bold and controversial. These articles posted on their social media site are verifiably false, and their intention is not to mislead audiences. They make satirical comments about the current affairs, one being Australia's immigration policy and the other being our fiscal policy. Batuta Advocate uses unconventional reporting and stylistic techniques, which distinguishes it from other news outlets, and their About Us section, which boasts of being Australia's oldest and favourite newspaper, is so far-fetched that it is unbelievable for audiences. It can be equated to the bold-faced type of lie, where a speaker says something even though everybody knows that it is false. The humour is used to provide critiques of political, economic, and social affairs, challenging audiences' assumptions and ingrained social hierarchies, which I believe they are serving as watchdogs of both people in power and the press, essentially acting as a fifth estate. This can be distinguished from other forms of fake news, which hides behind a veneer of legitimacy. The Batuta Advocate relies on a degree of facticity in order to bend the facts for the humour to work. Indeed, it has been found that individuals who watch satirical programs are just as knowledgeable about current affairs as individuals who consume other forms of news media. Parody, news, and satire are different from other forms of fake news in that there is an assumption that both the author and the reader share the gag. Thus, it can be deduced that in certain situations it may be acceptable to lie about the news when the audience will gain more knowledge from the way it is presented. Similarly, it may be acceptable to lie to a child to teach them life lessons. For example, if you don't brush your teeth they'll fall out. Or if you're not nice to your siblings, then Santa won't come this year. There are some elements of truths in these statements, and the moral, social imperative outweigh the immorality behind their deception. The phrase fake news is a mess of conflicting meanings, and in recent times has been attributed to everything. We need to rethink its meaning, as the way we are currently defining it does not include news parody and satire, and these in fact are a very useful and necessary way to distill the news cycle.